Chapter 54. There came an evening during my novitiate when, after being fed but lightly, I was taken to a chamber, and there, laced into an expensive corset, black as midnight, imported, I was told, from Paris, from the very workshop of the corsetier to the Queen. They painted my face into a wanton sister of itself, showing me in a hand mirror. 'Twas a woman I'd never seen before, whom upon the instant, sinfully, I desired. I allowed the maqueluses to hear my surprised little gasp as they brought out undergarments for me that night, that might, Blondel assured me, make a French whore think twice. The Chinaman likes these, they informed me, as firmly I was hooked and knotted into this uniform of most shamefully carnal intent, which framed, but did not veil, my intimate openings. I went this way and that upon the balls of my feet, lace trimmings aflutter in tiny steps of perplexity. Chinaman? What Chinaman? One of the principal duties of a widow of Christ is to charm the Chinese. Soon you'll begin your studies in their language. Eventually you'll go there for a year or two. China? Hold still. Oui, everyone here has served upon that station. You'll love it, cried Blondel. The food they eat there is delicious beyond belief. Shrimps with hot chilies and peanuts, sliced chicken and garlic and black bean sauce, cold sesame noodles, sweet biscuits with messages folded inside upon paper you can eat. Making myself hungry just thinking about it. The wicked French nuns all took a coordinated dance step together, turned and shook their fingers. Basest form of desire, Blondel. Even to speak of it suggests a failure of self-restraint I am all but obliged to report. Oh, get on. Have you never been starved for something that tastes like something instead of this gruel wherever fed? Nonetheless, sister, I took the moment to examine my new adorned limbs, running fingertips where I could not see, trying to be my own looking-glass. It earned me a slap and some time upon my knees. Charming the Chinaman was serious business round here. Time to bind those feet, child. It took a long time. I had never imagined my feet as having quite so many distinct parts, each able to feel in its own set of ways. Chinese men, in my reveries upon the subject, grew more interesting as the binding proceeded, if this was what they liked. Bray has discovered the sinister volume in Thelma's room, lying open to a copper plate engraving of two pretty nuns, sporting in ways she finds inexplicably intriguing. Oh, hello, Bray. Well, what's that you're reading? Having a look. Something of Cousin Depue's, I guess. She gazes at him for what seems to him a long time. You left it for someone to find, she whispers at last. Perhaps I'd only imagined my room safe from the eyes, however big and innocent, of curious cousins. You're full of surprises, Thelma, though I remain unclear as to why a young university gentleman should find affection between women at all a topic of interest. Why, sure, there may be renderings more pleasant to look upon. The western country at sunset, probably, scenes of religious life, hunting dogs, a table full of food. Yet, if one of you, beheld intimately, be all but unbearably fair, you see, imagine the sentimental delight into which a man might be thrown at the sight of two of you. More than twice as much, I'd guess, wouldn't you? Oh, something exponential, I've no doubt, her cousin replies. Besides that, 'tis the next in the ghastly fop series. I'm obliged in honour to read them all in a line, ain't I? Then you must first bring me up to date, mustn't you? Thelma blurts a synopsis. The ghastly fop, he's seen at ridottos and hurricanes, close to gaming tables as to expensive nymphs, but he speaks to no one approaches him. Not I, thank you, much too ghastly, is the post-ventilatory murmur among the belles attending. He is reported to be the wraith of a quite dreadfully ruined young man, come to London from the country, who can return neither there nor to the world of death, until sizable debts in this one be settled, and to reside, though not necessarily to live, in Hampstead. The ghastly F, true to his legend, is engaged in the long, frustrating, too often unproductive exercise of tracking down everyone with whom he yet has unresolved financial dealings. To some he seems quite conventionally alive, whilst others swear he is a ghost. That no one is certain contributes to his peculiar charm, though admirers must ever sigh, for but one motrix commands his attention and fidelity, the account book. Some of those named therein have cheated him of money he must collect, others are creditors whom he must repay, and so forth. On and on he goes, one to another, using these imbalances as a general excuse to pry into the finances of others, fop-linked or not. Some days he'll find a 2-for-1. The series runs to at least a dozen volumes by now, though no one is sure exactly how many. Forgeries have also found their way into the market. Ghastly fop sightings are increasingly reported, not only from Ranelagh or Covent Garden, but also over the kingdom, Thornton-le-Bean, Slad, name your town. The ghastly F has either just been through or is scheduled to arrive at any moment. In his largely paper vengeance, he not only traverses England, but the world of commerce as well, writing injustices in Grub Street, prematurely exploding bubble schemes, making wild raids upon the exchange, gambling stacks of what proved to be only ghost guineas, losing all, straightening his wig, and vanishing before the admittedly sleep-denied eyes of the company. Somewhere, as some would say ineluctably, in this wealth-spangled web is a fateful strand leading to the Society of Jesus. Of course, being a financial entity, Jesuits have the same difficulties with stock jobbing, land holdings, officials who may not stay bribed for quite long enough. That is, they seem submissive as any of us before the commands of time, though their wonderful telegraph gives them in that article an edge over the rest of Christendom. who have still advanced no further in the arts of the distant message than training courier pigeons or small hawks to seize those of others out of the sky and bring the prey back to their handlers, before being allowed their own enjoyment. How far in the book did you get? Up to where she meets the Chinese boy and they plan their escape. Awkward time to break off. I heard you out in the hall. They stand quite close in the small upper room, relations stashed orthogonally all about, invisible though now and then sensed otherwise, behind wallpaper, plaster, lathes and scantlings, gazes attached, unable it dawns upon each not to regard the other with just this steady amusement. Say, the next chapter's a pippin, Thelma whispers. May I read it to you? Promise I'll keep my voice down. Thoughtful as ever, Thal. Bray looking about now for some item of furniture to sit upon other than the bed, and finding none. We might sit upon the magical carpet in the corner, as we did when children, he suggests. We might, adverting to the bed rather, with a sure domestic touch, she sweeps pillows and bolsters into a longitudinal berm more symbolic than practical, and lies down upon one side of it. Let us have another candle first, says she, that we not ruin our eyes in this light, nor fail to see in vivid detail what otherwise we'd merely have to imagine. Lament your own imagination, cause, but do not underrate mine by quite so much. Say, nor is mine that feeble, Bray. Shh, read away, and if I fall asleep, pray do nothing rude. Fear not, all will be done with refinement. Thou. And so off they minuet, to become detoured from the Reverend's narrative turnpike into the pleasant track of their own mutual fascination by way of the captive's tale. One night I dream that I have come to a bridge across a broad river, with small settlements at either approach, and in its centre, at the highest point of its arch, a curious structure, some nights invisible in the river mists, lanthorns burning late, a toll house. Not everyone is allowed through, nor is paying the toll any guarantee of passage. The gatekeepers are members of a sect who believe that by choosing correctly which shall dwell one side of this river and which the other, the future happiness of the land may be assured. Those rejected often return to one of the inns clustered at either end of the bridge, take a bed for the night and try again in the morning. Some stay more than one night. When the bills become too burdensome, the pilgrims who wish strongly enough to cross may seek employment right there, at the ale draper's, or the laundry, or among the doxology, and keep waiting, their original purpose in wishing to cross often forgotten, along with other information that once seemed important, such as faces and their names, whose owners come now to my rooms to visit, and to instruct me in my responsibilities, back wherever it is I came from. They say they have known me all my life and seek to bring me away, home, to where I may at least be seen to by blood. Perhaps there is a young man, professing with the skill of an amateur actor to be my husband. Eliza, do thou not recognize me, the little ones, and so forth. Someone I cannot abide. Stubbornly, I look for some explanation of this order to live upon a side of the river I'd rather be across from than on. You're bold, I'll give you that. I don't belong on this side. What do you know of these things? Go back to your husband. He is not my husband. Had you crossed this stream, you would have lived a life of signal unhappiness. Go and survive for long enough to understand the gift we have made you. One night, the wolf of Jesus understands. In one of those thoughtlessly fatal instants, that Zhang has been fluent in Spanish all the while. Zhang watches him remember, one by one, the many utterances he has felt free to make in the Chinaman's hearing. The traditional next step is simply to have Zhang dropped off the roof during one of the night drills, the usual tragedy. But then the Spaniard may see an opportunity to remove certain memories and substitute others, thus controlling the very stuff of history. To any mind at all inquisitorial, an appealing turn of fate. Yet the Spaniard is disappointed, soon bitterly so, at Zhang's willingness cheerfully to forget all he may have heard, to recite whatever catechism of the past the Spaniard prefers. The wolf of Jesus, perhaps never aware that lies and truth will converge, albeit far from this place, takes particular pleasure in accusing Zhang of holding something back, a game which mathematically he cannot lose. There was another such remark. You remember it well. Damn if the baton won't part it from ye along with some skin. Such mention of torture increasing day by day, as if his alternatives had narrowed to it. 'Tis then Zhang begins to plan his departure. Observing him, learning infallibly where he may be at any given hour, she understands when he will leave, and in the instant decides to go with him, dropping her errands as her habit, stealing from the Indian quarters a boy's breechclout, robe, and leggings, finding an unused confessional booth, sliding her unbound feet into soft moccasins, dressing in deerskin, hoping to be taken for a boy. She joins Zhang, who, with no choice but to take her, pretends no interest in her bared limbs and sleek muscles ever in motion, as the fugitives cautiously seek exit from the city, in a departure as bound to the terrain as her dreamed one had been skyborne. In their instruction of the novices, the Jesuits spoke of early European arrivals upon the continent. Winters long and mortal and soon enough productive of visitants from beneath the ice have ever been among the terms of settlement here. This northern desert was too cruel to winter in at all separately. The only way through till spring was to gather as many people as possible into a hall. The disadvantage to this method, according to P. de la Tube, being that in living in crowded quarters, one crazy Swede could lead to a deterioration in living conditions, up to and not excluding a house full of corpses come springtide. What moral instruction does the American winter bring them? Hiding upon the stark hillside, the river remote as heaven below, Jesuits on horseback in black riding habits with divided skirts patrol the streets. From some avian drama above, Long black feathers blow one by one down toward where the bateaux once landed to take the city. The wind keeps remorselessly northern, and she wraps herself as she may into the robe. She understands at some turn in this that she has not yet prayed, nor should she pray, not now. That is over. This is a journey onward into a country unknown, an act of earth, irrevocable as taking flight. All the way down the river, keeping to the south shore, into Six Nations territory, not so much fleeing Jesuit pursuit as racing their own desire. One day, when they have gained the Mohawk, the ice upon the river begins its catastrophic rip and boom, blocks of it piling up into pinnacles and edifices, and spring has caught up with them. Guided by Captain Zhang's miraculous lure pan, they proceed inland and south to Fort Stanwix, and then on to Johnson Castle, above the Mohawk, arriving at the end of their strength, moving down a colonnade of Lombardy poplars, slow as a dream, observing about them Indian men smoking together in the clement afternoon, or shaking peach pits in a bowl and betting upon the results, whilst children run about with sticks and balls, and women sit together with their work. And there he is, himself, the Irish baronet, wearing skins and a raccoon hat, out among his people, the serfs of Johnson Castle, moving easily among the groups, switching among the English, Mohawk, Seneca, and Onondaga languages as needed. The Chinaman presents him a curious sort of metallic plate, which Sir William scrutinises, before relaxing into a less guarded smile. The two exchange a complicated handshake that seems to her to go on as long as an item of town gossip might, between women. "And how is the old pirate these days?" "He bade me remind you of that which, as a cautious man, you may not mention immediately." "Good. Who's this lad with you? Bit weedy, is he not? Could use a couple of bear chops, fry him some mush, few pints of ale, be well on the way to recovery." Sir William approaches her. "Do you speak any English, boy?" "Little," she whispers. Something alerts him. He takes her chin gently by the side of his index and raises her face and narrows his gaze. "The way of a warrior is not to be chosen lightly," he advises her, "as a girl might choose a gown." "She knew that," says the Chinaman. "That is, he knew that." "It's all right, Captain," and what she's surprised to hear is her own voice of old. "Sir, I am Eliza Fields of Conestoga. This gentleman has been kind enough to help me escape the French." "Why, bless me, but he's not an Indian either," cries Sir William Johnson. "I am reputed the soul of subtlety in these parts, yet am I now the bumpkin. Well, even a churl may be taught, sir. Tell me, what's the story?" They tell him. "Then sure as Marnie's mother-in-law there'll be a Jesuit pursuit party through here, and soon. Don't expect your Spaniard to wait for summer. Blood that hot, they bring their own seasons with them." "I know him," says Zhang. "He is very patient. Howbeit, A few more Mohawks about can't hurt. And you won't stay here forever, will ye? And you will of course present my compliments to your Masonic lodge, Captain Zhang twinkling resentfully. They arrange through Sir William for a safe passage as far down the Delaware as they will need. In all the journey, the Chinaman has never attempted to force his attentions upon her. Any relief she may feel is undone by her anxiety over when and how the subject will arise. That is, come up. That is, one night in an abandoned beast pen in New Jersey, as they hold one another for warmth, feeling reckless, she reaches down, as she has been taught by the order, and discovers his wand of masculinity in earnest erection. Perhaps we'd do better to skip over this part, gallant Thelma suggests. I've already read to the bottom of the next page, coolly replies Bray, so there's not much to do about it, save read on. Through the gloom, close enough for her to see, he smiles. Zhang does. Now then, Zhang, she whispers. It's been there every day, hasn't it? Yet observe, and as if at his command, it wilts, no less dramatically than it arose. What did I do? She mutters. Mistress, to you and me, any what we style in Chinese yin-yang is forbidden, he tells her. We were not born to play theatrical roles assigned us by others for their amusement. What are you talking about? The first man I approach in my life, and he says no? Ah! Attend me. I get into a lascivious state now and then. I'm Chinese all the time. That doesn't make me a lascivious Chinaman. Nor you, mutatis mutandis, a debauched, heretic maid. Yet, suppose that's what we really are, really ought to be. As you will, mistress. Meanwhile, either we are trying to escape these assassins, or we are not. Do you wish to return? For a moment she is all in a daze, her eyelashes a cycle. What contempt you must have for me. On the contrary, he whispers, I adore you, especially in that cute deerskin costume. Then, it's a Sino-Jesuit affair, nothing you'd even wish to understand. Sino-Jesuit? Well then, why didn't Blondel mention anything like this? In his particulars, Zhang corresponds to few, if any, of her mentrix's detailed notions about the other sex. Blondel, whom she will never again climb into bed with as the cruel rain assails the windows. That is, unless she be caught and returned. Somewhere in the Jesuit maze, she's been told, awaits a special windowless cell lined entirely in black velvet, upon which wink various bright metal fittings. A mysterious space she has more than curiously longed to enter. 'Tis where they put the runaways who come back, who wish to come back. Her thoughts thus in a whirl, she falls asleep in his embrace, not waking till the dawn of the cloud-draped day, to feel him hard as ever and pressed against her. She begins hoping they'll find some population soon. The smell of wood smoke is more and more with them, as often, through the newly green trees, cabins and outbuildings appear. They are challenged by bulls, and chased by farm dogs whose meanness is not improved by the doubtful edibility of their intended prey. That's what they call Chinese, Buck. Not sure I'd want to eat that. Not sure you're gonna catch that. The other dogs are pacing and posing like wolves, putting on tight-lipped smiles. Well, they're fast, but not that fast. The fugitives learn to carry staffs. Soon they look like pilgrims. Soon after that they begin to feel like pilgrims. All the while the lure pan is trembling and growing hot to the touch. At last, as the green halations about the hillsides reduce to material certainty, they arrive at the west line and decide to follow the Visto east, and ere long they have come up with the party. They are greeted by most of the commissary, headed by Mo McLean, the hands more agog than they should be allowing themselves by now to be sent by such apparitions, and assigned quarters separated by a good chain and a half's worth of gazes, stares, and glares. "Shall I see you more?" she mutters more than pleads. "Shall you continue to question your choice?" "Yes. Pleased you're smiling for a change. You must think we're all amusing." What non-Chinese people find of importance may now and then be very amusing indeed. Will you return to Canada? It wasn't all that bad there, she lets him know. Easy for you to say, Voidita. Sir, you are provoking me. My own experience was a bit different. Oh, you weren't having such a bad time of it that I could see, missing few, if any, mess calls, indeed quite plump, and ever in good humour, not as you are now. Why should you have ever wanted to leave is past me. In China, 'tis considered greatly unwise to escape one captivity in order to embrace another. To my sins, so must I add foolishness. Why, you're free as a bird. What captivity? But he is gazing at her with those enigmatic Chinese eyes she pretends she cannot read. She turns her head a bit, then looks back sidewise. And will the Spaniard come after us? Because he believes I stole you. Another reason, then, for me to be upon my way. Once I would have sighed. Please, one day, imagine me as having sighed. Shall you return to your husband, then? Either to Jesuits or to him? That's my full list of choices. Po upon ye Zhang, and po upon your yin-yang too. She twirls her nose in the air and departs. She is bunking with Shuja Jabo, the operator of the automatic battle of Luthen, a pleasant-looking young woman who, wearing the dress uniform of the Nadasti Hussars, had one day, astride a splendid Arab horse, overtaken the party. "Hello, boys, it's Zhuzha." She has a charmingly un-English way of saying this. Axemen arrest their swings so violently that axes stand still in the air, their recoils sending some of their axemen a-whirl the other way. Indians crouched in the brush gaze and marvel at how she's painted her face. The milkmaids whisper together at length. She has been on the move since the Battle of Luthen. in 1757, in which, disguised as a youth, riding in a detachment of light cavalry, she was not so much visited by understanding as allowed briefly to pay attention to what had been there all the time, seeing then her clear duty to bring word of what was about to emerge into the world from the Prussian plains. From a simple recital, with gestures of the events of the battle, has developed a kind of street show, with accordion music, dog tricks, and gypsy dancing, and an automatic miniature or aurora of engagement, displaying the movements of the troops as many times as the curious student may wish. Later, the surveyors come by the tent, each for a short visit. Dixon, now that Eliza knows what to look for, seems to her fully as fascinated as the Chinaman with her deerskin costume. As he leaves, backing out the tent flap, all a hum, he nearly collides with Mason, who mutters, "That likely, is it?" glaring Dixon upon his way before adverting to the young woman, whereupon he is seized with what, later, he will describe to Dixon as an ague of soul. Fierce heat, deep shivering. For a moment she assumes 'tis the Indian turn-out again, till she sees his so pale and saddened face. "Excuse me." He sits in an oblate heap upon the tent floor, removes his hat, fans himself. "You resemble far too faithfully one whom I have not beheld, not in body, for 7 years. More than merely some general likeness, madam. You are her point-for-point representation." She runs a hand over her crop. "I can't imagine her hair was the same." This was how the widows taught their novices to flirt. Or, deciding hair may be a safe topic with this one, but little else, she doesn't go on. "Allowing for that, of course," his eyes shifting about in their sockets like insects about candle flames. "Sir, I am the elder daughter of Joseph Fields of Conestoga Creek. Last winter I was taken by a band of Shawanese." "Be easy, child. I shan't insanely presume you to be she. I'm merely torpedo-struck. It's not only the separate parts, but your bearing of them as well, your bodily gesturing, your voice. Attend me. Do you believe that the dead return?" "Sir, you are distraught, perhaps even about to behave irresponsibly." "Ew, Mr. Mason, I think not. Is there by chance a chaplain attached to your party?" "Regrettably, yes. I try never to seek his counsel." "I meant that I might wish to." "Of course. Our Reverend Cherrycoke, excellent man." "You're making that one up," Uncle Lomax, now wagging a finger he eventually hits himself in the nose with. "And did she seek your counsel?" inquires Ives. "Oh, I got into the matter after a bit," recalls the Reverend, "though Mason was the one who needed spiritual advice." "Is it transmigration, Rev?" all but pleading, "following me everywhere, even out to the latrine? What are the chances? Come, sir, you can give it to me straight." The Reverend cannot help having a fast look over at the visto, and remarking in his own tap-room cadence, "Around here, how else?" squatting over the noisome trench as Mason paces to and fro. He speculates that the resemblance so confounding Mason is less likely the transmigration of a soul than the resurrection of a body, and enough of its particulars to convince him 'tis she. Yet the soul he imagines as newly inhabiting their guest must in any case have forgotten its previous life as Rebecca Mason. The slate cleanly washed, no way to prove who she's been, as in Plato's tale of she'll have drunk from the Lethe and begun anew. And if she comes, or is sent, as a sort of corporeal agent to finish, in behalf of my wife's spirit, some business that only the body knows how to transact, his voice much too high and loud, about to careen upon him, the Reverend runs through the possibilities. Now and then he fears clucking. Well, I do hope not. That is, you are titular party chief here, and may come and go as you please. Yet I grow, I fear, not more bestial as you imply, but less, even the activity you now so freely engage in, being denied me for longer than I now remember. You've taken Daffy's elixir? It means first asking Dixon, who holds the key to the dispensary. It thus means as well a certain smirk that I am not sure I can abide. He is, I collect, a habitué of that compound, the Reverend, having wiped his arse with a handful of clover, draws up his breeches again. Just so. I have felt obliged to abstain from it, even as he superdoses himself, for the sake of equilibrium in the party. Admirable, of course, as are all acts of self-denial, usually. Are you certain you're telling me everything? Being clenched in all other ways, remarks Mason, there likely is something I'm holding back. That night, or perhaps the next, Mason wakes from a dream, one he has had before. Trying to get back to the mill in Ware, he keeps being set down by carts and coaches, farther and farther away. All at once he and Rebecca are travelling together, on foot, till they are picked up by a stranger in a coach and taken to a house where residence she knows, whose residence she knows, where she is seduced, not entirely against her will, by this band of foreign, dimly political, dimly sinister men and women. She lies still, passive, allowing them all to handle her. Mason, in despair, watches a kind of lengthy ritual. He does not intervene because she has told him in painfully direct language that he no longer has the right. Once she flicks her eyes toward him, as if to make sure he's looking, but only once, and briefly. Who are they? What is their mission, their name? Structured servitude, a foreview of purgatory, a prison that works through bribes, threats, favours, with rules that may be fatal not to know. She, perhaps willingly, taken into it, under it, he cannot follow. Can as little charm as sing his way in. He knows only straightforwardly squalid Palamite arrangements. Here all is illegible, and a light forever about to fail. Worse, he shall have to return in dreams to this same place, again and again. The layout of the rooms ever the same doors having but just closed, the invisible occupants having only just gone away, The whispering across the wall he can almost hear. He wakes with his hands and fists, dried tears and cold lines cross his temples. She is where the Frenchmen, in their make-believe chateau, perfumed, intricately bewigged, stop all day at their toiletries, safe from the cold consensus that ignores dream in its reckoning. France, French agents of death, at the worst of the fight between the Seahorse and Legrand, in all that tearful fall from humanity, his bowels seconds away from letting go, there had wrapped round him the certainty that whatever was come for him now had also come for her then, not in the way of a bailiff or assassin, at all selective, but rather as a dredge, a scavenger foraging blind, unto which Mason sensed himself about to be gathered, as mindlessly as any seaman above decks, forever to be nameless. They were possessing her in ways more intimate than had ever been allowed him, interfering at orders of minitude invisible to human eye, infiltrated without need of light or map, commanding the further branches of whatever flows in a soul like blood. She and her captors whispering together incessantly in a language they knew and he did not. And what language could it be? Not any French as he had ever heard it, too fast and guttural and without grace. They all spoke at incredible speed, without pause for breath. For where breath has ceased, what need for the little pauses of mortal speech that pass among us, ever unnoticed? His father has appeared. And give some thought to your spinster there, so abandoned and gay. You're a genius at picking 'em, boy. It has only now come to light how she was the thrown-aside toy of a Leadenhall Street nabob, who visits your dear friends the Peaches now and then for East India business and country sport, and their attentions to you are conditional upon your marrying her. They were together in a room. She was about to depart. I commend you upon your forbearance, madam, most Christian. You mean, considering all that your father has said about me? Why, sensibility, 'tis nothing to me any more. Pray release yourself. He felt he had to go on. 'Twas never you, heart. 'Twas me he wished to wound. On second thought, Rebecca swiftly returned, cherish your antagonism. Let it freeze your souls, both of you. Either choice lies far from me now. Her representative in the waking world, pale and distant, squats by the coffee, poking the morning fire. A little less solid each day, she is drifting toward her own absence. She looks up warily as Mason makes a loxodrome for the pot. You've dreamt of her again. Thank'ee. With your hair growing in, you don't look like her that much any more. I never did. Susa wants us to go off and be adventuresses. Seth, quite out of the picture, then, I take it. If your travels take you by Conestoga, put your ears to the wind. Follow the sounds of merry indulgence, and where they are loudest, there shall Seth be, and you will note how he mourns me. Ne'er met the lad, of course. Good morning, Kixi Kaposta. Little one. Zhuzha, striding in and embracing her co-adventuress to be from behind. They smile and stretch, glowing like cheap iron stoves burning heart wood in the dark, just that distance from no light at all. Rebecca, her eyelids never blinking. For where all is dust, dust shall be no more. Confronts him upon surfaces not so much random as outlaw, uncontrolled by any apparent end or purpose, in the penumbra of God's concern. That's if you don't mind comparing his regard with a solar eclipse. Moving water, Mason tries to go fishing whenever he can, for there is no telling what the next riffle may present him. The rock abysses and mountainsides, leaves in the wind announcing a storm, shadows of wrought ironwork upon a wall, the kissing crusts of new baked loaves. On the Indian warrior paths to and from triumphs, captivities, and death. In the lanes overgrown of abandoned villages at the turn of the day. In the rusted ending of the sky's light. In the full eye of the wind. She stands, waiting to speak to him. What more has she to say? He has long run out of replies. Then I am not she, but a representation. This thing, she will not style it death. I am detained here in this thing, that my body all the while was capable of and leading me to, and carried with it surely as the other thing, the thing our bodies could do together. She will not style it love. Has she forgotten words over there where tongues are stilled and no need for either exists? End of chapter.